Nneka and Ifeanyi, her husband, were enjoying a peaceful afternoon one day when the guards rushed in and said, "Madam, there is an old man at the gate with a woman." Nneka frowned and asked, "Who?" And the guard answered, "He says he is your father." Nneka froze. Her father? Why was he here? And who was the woman with him? Then it clicked. Cordelia. Nneka immediately stood up. Ifeanyi touched her hand gently and said, "Do you want to see them?" Nneka took a deep breath. Her heart wasn't hard. Her father had been weak, but he was still her blood. She couldn't throw him away. "Let them in," she finally said. And just like that, Cordelia walked back into her life. But what did she really want? The moment Nneka saw her father, her heart tightened. Chief Obinna looked like a shadow of himself. His once strong frame was frail and thin. His eyes, once full of life, now carried regret and sadness. But beside him, standing tall and unashamed, was Cordelia. Nneka's jaw tightened. This woman, the same woman who had stabbed her, beaten her, and stolen her happiness, the same woman who had manipulated her father to abandon her, and now she was back. For what? Nneka turned to the guards. "Let them in." Ifeanyi studied her carefully. He could see her fingers shaking slightly. She was strong, but this moment it was painful. He reached for her hand and squeezed it gently and said, "You don't owe them anything," he whispered. Nneka swallowed hard but said nothing. As her father and Cordelia walked in, the air grew heavy. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Chief Obinna cleared his throat and said, "Nneka, my daughter." Nneka closed her eyes. That word, daughter, he had thrown it away years ago. Now he wanted to use it again. She finally spoke, her voice calm but firm, and she said, "What do you want?" Chief Obinna flinched. He had expected warmth, maybe even a little softness, but Nneka's face was like stone. "Nneka, I know I failed you," he began, "but a father is still a father." "No," Nneka cut in. "A father is someone who protects, someone who loves, someone who stands by his child. You?" She let out a bitter laugh. "Ha ha ha! You were never my father," she said. Chief Obinna blinked rapidly. Cordelia quickly jumped in, pretending to wipe tears, and said, "Ah, Nneka, my daughter, so you still have this much bitterness in your heart after all these years?" Nneka turned to her slowly and said, "Bitterness?" She repeated, "You mean after everything you did to me, I should welcome you with open arms?" Cordelia sniffed dramatically and said, "Ah, my daughter, I know I made mistakes." Nneka laughed. "Mistakes? You call wickedness and cruelty mistakes?" Cordelia glanced at Ifeanyi, her eyes light up with desperation and fake humility. She quickly dropped to her knees and said, "My son, please, talk to your wife for us, please." Ifeanyi raised an eyebrow and said, "Madam, I am not your son." Cordelia's face stiffened, but she forced a smile and turned back to Nneka and said, "Please, forgive us. We have suffered. Look at your father. Look at me. We are nothing now. We have no food, no money. We are begging you, please, Nneka. Please, Nneka, help us." Nneka watched her carefully and said, "Begging?" This was the same woman who had laughed while she starved, the same woman who had mocked her tears. Now she was on her knees. Nneka felt nothing but her father. She sighed deeply and turned to Chief Obinna and said, "You may have abandoned me, but I won't do the same. You are my father. If you need medical care, food, or shelter, I will provide it. But you, Cordelia," she turned to the woman who had ruined her childhood and said, "I owe you nothing." Cordelia's face changed instantly. Her fake humility vanished. Her eyes turned cold and sharp. She stood up slowly, dusting her knees. Then she smirked and said, "Ah, so this is how it is." Nneka said nothing. Cordelia tilted her head and laughed bitterly and said, "I see. You think you've won?" She took a step closer. "You think because you have money now, you can do whatever you like." Nneka stayed calm, but Cordelia's voice grew louder. "Let me tell you something, Nneka. Nothing lasts forever. One day, this wealth you are enjoying will vanish. And when that comes," she leaned in, her voice dripping with venom, "you will come back to me, and I will be waiting." Everywhere was calm as she was talking. Then Nneka held her gaze, unshaken. Then she smiled and said, "You are wrong, Cordelia. The only thing that will vanish is you." And with that, she turned to the guards. "Take her out." Cordelia's eyes widened. "You dare? Take her out," Nneka repeated, her voice like steel. The guards immediately grabbed Cordelia's arms. She screamed, kicked, and cursed, but it didn't matter. She was dragged out. Chief Obinna sat there, shaking. He had never seen his daughter like this before. She was no longer the helpless girl they once controlled. She was now a queen who bowed to no one. After Cordelia was dragged out, Chief Obinna remained seated, his hands trembling. Nneka took a deep breath and sat across from him and said, "Papa," her voice calmer now, "why did you come?" Chief Obinna lowered his head and said, "I had nowhere else to go." His voice was weak. "When the business failed, the people I called friends disappeared. When Cordelia and her children realized there was no more money, they began to insult me. My daughter, I was blind. I was a fool, and now I have lost everything." Nneka watched him carefully. He looked broken. For the first time, she saw the man who used to carry her on his shoulders, who used to sing to her when she was little. She saw her father, and despite everything, she couldn't ignore him. She said, "Papa, I will help you," she finally said. Chief Obinna lifted his head in shock and said, "You will?" She nodded. "But let me be clear." She sat up straighter. "You will never, I repeat, never bring Cordelia near me again." Chief Obinna nodded quickly and said, "Never, Nneka, I swear on my life, I will never bring her." "And her children," Nneka added, "they are not my enemies, but they will stay far from my marriage and my happiness. If I choose to help them later, it will be from a distance. No manipulation, no begging, no forcing." Chief Obinna swallowed hard and nodded and said, "I understand, my daughter." "Good," Nneka said. "Now listen carefully." She explained her plans. Chief Obinna will be given a small but comfortable house. He will not depend on her for survival. She will set up a business for him. She will make sure he was healthy, comfortable, and well taken care of. But he will never interfere in her life again. "Papa, if you betray my trust again, that will be the end," she warned. Tears rolled down Chief Obinna's cheek, and he said, "I will never betray you again, Nneka. I swear it." For the first time in years, Nneka saw something in his eyes, regret and love. She sighed and nodded. Then, for the first time in a long time, she called him something she hadn't said in years. "Papa, eat. You must be hungry." Chief Obinna covered his face and wept. He had lost his way, but today his daughter had given him a second chance. On the other side, Cordelia screamed and fought as the guards dragged her out of Nneka's mansion. She was thrown outside, and the gate slammed shut behind her. She staggered to her feet, dusting off her clothes, her face red with anger, and she said, "Nneka, you will regret this," she shouted at the gate. "You think you have won? You think this is the end? I will make sure you suffer." But inside the mansion, Nneka was already done with her. She turned to Chief Obinna and said, "You need rest, Papa. Let me arrange a place for you." Cordelia stood outside for over an hour, waiting for Chief Obinna to come out, but he never did. When she realized what was happening, her heart pounded with fear. Nneka had accepted him back, but not her. Cordelia had been cut off. For the first time in her life, she was truly alone. Cordelia walked back to the small dirty house she and her daughters now lived in. The moment she entered, her eldest daughter Oluchi rushed to her and said, "Mama, what happened?" Cordelia collapsed onto the floor and said, "Nneka threw me out, oh," she wailed. Oluchi and her younger sister Amarachi gasped. "What about Papa?" Amarachi asked. Cordelia stared at them, her lips shaking, and she said, "Your father is staying with her." The room felt silent. For the past few months, they had been barely surviving. They had sold everything: jewelry, clothes, even furniture. They had no money. They had no food. Now, their last hope was gone. Oluchi bit her lip and looked at her mother and said, "Mama, we have to beg, oh, we have to beg Nneka." Cordelia's eyes widened in shock and she said, "What?" She screamed. "You want me to kneel before that wretched girl?" Oluchi swallowed hard and said, "Mama, she is not wretched anymore. She is rich, and we are the ones suffering." Cordelia grabbed her daughter's arms, shaking her, and said, "You are my daughter. You should stand by me, not that ungrateful fool." But Oluchi pulled away and said, "Mama, let me ask you something." She crossed her arms and said, "What did Nneka ever do to you?" Cordelia froze. Oluchi continued, "Did she steal from you? Did she fight you? Did she insult you?" Cordelia's lips trembled. "She took everything," she said. "No," Oluchi's voice was firm. "You took everything from her first, and now karma has come." Cordelia stared at her daughter in shock. "You dare speak to me like this?" Oluchi stood her ground and said, "I dare speak the truth, Mama." Cordelia was breathing heavily. She turned to Amarachi and said, "What about you? Do you agree with this nonsense?" Amarachi lowered her head and said, "Mama, we are hungry. We have nothing. Maybe we should just go and beg Nneka for help." Cordelia felt her world crashing down. Her own daughters, they were betraying her. They were choosing Nneka over her. She slapped Oluchi hard across the face and said, "Get out!" Cordelia screamed, "Both of you, if you want to beg that girl, then leave my house." But Oluchi stood tall. She had had enough. She grabbed her sister's hand and marched toward the door and said, "We are going, Mama. If you like, sit here and die in your pride." Cordelia watched in shock as her daughters walked out. She felt her chest tighten. For the first time, she realized she had truly lost everything. Oluchi and Amarachi stood in front of Nneka's mansion nervous. The guards recognized them immediately. One of them asked, "What do you want?" Oluchi swallowed hard and said, "Please, we need to see Nneka." The guards exchanged looks but didn't stop them. A few minutes later, Nneka walked out. She froze when she saw them. "What are you doing here?" she said. Her voice was calm but firm. Oluchi and Amarachi fell on their knees and said, "Sister, please forgive us." Oluchi said, tears in her eyes, "We were wrong. Mama poisoned our minds against you. We believed everything she said, but now we know the truth. Please don't abandon us." Nneka stared at them, her chest tightening. Amarachi wiped her tears and said, "Sister, we are hungry. We have nothing. Mama has refused to ask for help. She is letting her pride destroy her. Please help us." For a moment, Nneka said nothing. She had spent years suffering because of their mother. She remembered the pain, the betrayal, the nights she cried herself to sleep, but she also remembered her own past. She knew what it meant to feel abandoned. She let out a slow breath, then she helped them up and said, "I will help you." Oluchi and Amarachi's eyes widened in relief and they said, "Thank you, sister, thank you." But then Nneka added, "But from a distance." The sisters froze. You will not live with me, Nneka continued. I will rent an apartment for you. I will set up a small business for you, and I will make sure you never go hungry again. But Oluchi began, but we will not live like before. Nneka said firmly, I will not allow you to bring your mother's poison into my home. I have built my happiness and I will protect it. Oluchi and Amarachi looked at each other, then nodded. They understood. They had lost Nneka as a sister in the way they once knew, but she was still saving them. And for that, they were grateful. When Oluchi and Amarachi returned home and told Cordelia that Nneka had agreed to help them, but not her, Cordelia screamed in anger and said, that ungrateful witch, how dare she refuse to help me? But this time, her daughters ignored her. They had chosen a better life. And Cordelia, she was left alone in her pride, in her suffering, in the ruins she created for herself. Years passed, and Nneka's life blossomed like a well-watered garden. She and Ifeanyi, her loving husband, built a home filled with love, peace, and joy. Despite all she had suffered, happiness found her. One bright morning, the entire mansion was filled with laughter and excitement. Nneka sat on a soft couch, her stomach round and heavy. She was pregnant with twins. Ifeanyi sat beside her, rubbing her feet gently, and said, my queen, are you okay? He asked. Nneka smiled, her heart full, and she answered, I am more than okay, my love. I am blessed. A few months later, Nneka gave birth to a beautiful baby boy and girl. Her father, Chief Obinna, held the babies with trembling hands, tears running down his face, and he said, Nneka, my daughter, he whispered, you have brought joy back into my life. Oluchi and Amarachi also visited, bringing gifts for their newborn niece and nephew. They had grown, learned, and built good lives for themselves. They had no hate in their hearts. They had learned from the past. But Cordelia, she remained alone, stuck in her own bitterness. Her pride had cost her everything. And in the end, Nneka was the one who won. She built a life filled with love, happiness, and success. She had everything she once prayed for and more. This is where our story ends. The moral lesson we take from this story: karma is real. The evil you do to others will always come back to you. Cordelia mistreated Nneka, and in the end, she suffered alone. Patience and perseverance win. Nneka endured pain but never gave up. Her hard work and patience led her to a beautiful life. Not all that glitters is gold. Cordelia and her daughters chased wealth but ended up in misery, while Nneka was forced to marry a man they thought was poor, who ended up being a hidden billionaire. Forgive, but protect your peace. Nneka helped her stepsisters, but kept them at a distance to protect her happiness. Pride destroys. Cordelia's pride stopped her from seeking forgiveness, and in the end, she lost everything. This concludes our story. Thank you for watching once again. And don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. And also touch the bell button so that you will be notified each time we put out new video. Subscribe for more stories with powerful life lessons. Please and please subscribe to help us grow our channel. And please don't forget to leave your comment, your question, or even your suggestion in the comment section, and we will come back to deal with it. God bless you as you do so. Bye bye. Love you. Mwah.